Hi everyone! I thought for today's daily data I'd give you a quick introduction to one of the online resources that I found incredibly useful in my own research. And it's honestly just a lot of fun to explore and have a look and see what's in this particular website, even if you're not using it for a specific research purpose like I do. It's called the Ore Online Project, and it's a digital collection of all of the materials excavated from the city of Ore, which is the Iraqi site of Tel El Mukayar, that was excavated during the 20th century by a man called Leonard Woolley. The excavation happened right after the end of World War I and was a joint expedition by the University of Pennsylvania Museum and the British Museum. And part of the agreement of the excavation by the Iraqi government was that Iraq would receive half of all materials found, and the remaining half would be split between the Pennsylvania Museum in the States and the British Museum in London, which means that all of this stuff is kind of spread across three major museums and three continents, which doesn't make it particularly easy for research purposes. So before I dive into that, I'll give you a bit of background about the city of Ore. I have my notes here. So Ore is famous as one of the first cities in Mesopotamia, possibly in the world. It's well known among Christians and biblical scholars as the reported home of the biblical figure Abraham. It was inhabited for many thousands of years and was originally right on the banks of the Euphrates. A lot of early cities were situated along the Euphrates and the Tigris rivers. They were very useful for transport and for irrigation purposes. And then the city was actually abandoned when the course of the river drifted too far from its original location. So we've covered the excavations. So the Ore Online project digitally reunites all of the objects, with each other, but also with the excavation materials, including sketches, maps, letters, excavation notes, as well as the original publications. And just because it's really cool and I like showing it off when I have a chance to, I actually have one of the original publications of the Ore excavations. It's an adorable little book published in 1946, and it has just little interesting bits about the city and the royal tombs. I'll do another video about the royal tombs later, but at the back it also has these fantastic watercolor pictures that's a reconstruction, and then some of the objects. And this, you might recognize this. This is the Royal Standard of Ore, and this is one of the original watercolor sketches of it. So, I love this book. So I just wanted to show you. So, this, as you can see, is the homepage for the Ore Online project. And if you want to know more about the project itself, there's an About tab right at the top. For those of you who have some kind of web developing knowledge, there's a tab just for you. But what I normally spend my time in is the search function. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of that. You'd think it's a search function, really how difficult can it be? And it's not difficult, but I want to show some of the different ways you can use it and some of the features that are available. So obviously you've got your traditional search by keyword, but you've also got 4 different options for museum, 3 options for museum number. That's the one here, this one, and then this one down here. So this one, the UPM searches are for museum numbers from the University of Pennsylvania. The BM search is object numbers from the British Museum. And the U number is the excavation number that all objects are assigned when they're removed from the ground. So we're just going to use the unumber search function because I happen to have a couple of excavation numbers here that I may have prepared earlier. So we're going to go with 2833A. So you type in whatever it is, the number you have, and it obviously turns up the result. And sometimes if you're lucky there's a nice picture. But the object description is always has these fields. So it gives you the number, what kind of object it is, and all of these are obviously links that take you to collections. Oh, well, that's not going to work. Never mind. Ignore that. But it takes you to different collections archived within the website. That's not going to work either. There we go. So this is all of the inorganic remains, and you can scroll through them, and each one is clickable. You can go and look at the entry for every object, but we're going to go back to the brick that we found earlier. Sorry, my cats are having a fight. And it also gives you the museum number if you want to go and look it up in the museum catalogue. And if you scroll down, this is one of my favourite features. It's got the context. Now, archaeological context tells you exactly where in a site an object was found. And the ore excavations were one of the first early excavations that I know of, at least, that systematically recorded exactly where objects were located. One of the problems you can have when you're working with excavations that occurred in the early 20th century is that they don't tell you where things were. They just say, oh look, we found this beautiful pot in this old city, isn't it cool? They don't tell you that that pot was found in a cultic site buried with 5 human skeletons and a horse, which is, useful to reconstruct how these objects were used and what they meant to the people who made them. So the context here, all of these are links that you can click on and then go and read about where these things were found. So the green rectangle highlights the area that this object came from. So that brick came from somewhere within here, which for the time is actually quite a specific find spot. It gives you details about the context, and then you can scroll down, and this list here gives you all of the objects that were found in that same place. This one isn't terribly specific. If you go to, there are some that are just rooms. So this is a group of rooms with tombs underneath the floors, and it gets specific enough that you can tell this object was found in a specific room with this other group of objects, which is great for reconstructing, like I said, how objects were used, what they were intended for. So that's one of the fantastic features about the Ore Online project. If you go back to we've come back to the object page here. Sorry, I realized I was clicking around and not telling you what I was doing. I came back to the object page, and if you keep scrolling down, it gives you, sorry, our cats are being very special today. It gives you links to any books or reports that this particular object was listed in, which is, again, fantastic if you plan on doing further research at all. I'm going to take a look at, there's another object that I want to take a quick look at. This one doesn't have a photo, unfortunately, but it is a door socket. And here, if you look at the context again, you can see it's much more detailed. So they're not quite sure where this one came from. It either came from room C25 or room C26. Again, that's remarkably specific for the time in which this was excavated. It's not perfect. But if you look just at the context chain, the Giparu is a cultic building in the temple district, and it was actually found in the Ningal temple. That's the temple to the goddess Ningal, in Unit C, which is where the C26, and then this is the specific room. So if we click on the room, it tells you down here in the context description that this is a storeroom with tablets and seal impressions, and also that it has objects from all of these time periods. So that tells you that this particular region of the site was in use for a very long time, all through the Neo-Babylonian period, which is several hundred years, several thousand years, I think, actually. I'm not great with dates, not a useful thing for historians. But then again, if you scroll down, it shows you what else was found with this object. And what you can see instantly is that there's a lot of door sockets found in this room, which makes sense if it's a storeroom. So old objects that were not being used would have been stored, because if an object is dedicated to a god or to a temple, it's considered holy and pure, and you can't just throw it away. I spoke about this briefly in the early dynastic votive statuary video that I did. It tells you there are also seal impressions with a clay ceiling. So seals and clay ceilings are often evidence for food storage or object storage, even like room security. They were used to seal up rooms. You'd use rope to tie a room closed, then you'd press a blob of clay over the rope and roll your seal across it, so that if it was opened, the seal would be broken and you'd be able to tell that someone had been inside. So there's a whole load of things, including clay tablet receipts, again something that would be common in a storage room. And then these are all of the rooms that are found in the same building. So if you want to I've got lost down so many rabbit holes because I just think, oh, I wonder what's in this room. And then I take a look and it's a courtyard, which is pretty cool. And in this courtyard there's a water tank and a limestone pillar, and oh, how interesting. And oh, look at that clay vase. Isn't that nice? Well, it's not really nice, but it's got a good shape. And there's so many interesting things that you can look at. So I should probably stop there. I could keep going for a little while. But that's the search function on the Aura Online project. I highly recommend that you go and take a look. They have a browse function that's pretty cool. So just go in, have a click around and see what you find.